There is a silence deeper than death, a space between the last breath and the great beyond. In that silence, not every soul finds the light. The passage from this world is not always a gentle unfolding into divine radiance. Some linger, some turn away. Others simply do not know that the light even called for them. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, opened a window into this hidden territory, an invisible domain of transition, hesitation, and unfinished resonance. Why would a soul avoid the light? It is not rebellion, it is not evil, it is not punishment, it is misalignment. When a being has lived bound by fear, attachment, confusion, or disbelief, the vibration of their essence may not harmonize with the frequency of the light. And so, in a vibrational universe governed by law and resonance, that which does not align cannot enter. The light does not reject, it invites. But invitation is not coercion, it requires attunement. Cayce described this space, a kind of spiritual echo chamber, as a vibratory zone just outside the higher planes, a place of dreams and distortions. Here, souls may wander in states of confusion, repeating scenes, unaware of their death, or clinging to unfinished business. Some even attempt to communicate with the living, drawn to familiar energies. They are not demons. They are not lost forever. They are simply unresolved. There is no judgment here. The soul is never condemned, but it does face the truth of its own frequency. If it has cultivated bitterness, obsession, guilt, or denial, these qualities weigh it down. The light, in its purity, becomes unbearable, not because it harms, but because it reveals. And for some, the revelation is too much. Imagine waking from a long, dense dream. The world around you feels warped. You know something has changed, but you can't name it. You reach for your memories, but they scatter like smoke. Your name means less. Your desires fade. You are in between. This is the threshold many souls occupy when they do not move to the light. It is not a place. It is a state. Cayce did not preach fear. He offered understanding. He showed that spiritual growth is not about pleasing some deity or following external rules. It is about refining our inner vibration, our consciousness. What we carry within us, our thoughts, intentions, emotions, shapes not just our lives, but our deaths. The moment of crossing is not a switch. It is a continuation. We don't escape ourselves. We meet ourselves more deeply. For some, this meeting is beautiful and immediate. For others, it takes time. A great spiraling of awareness, nudged by compassion, dreams, guidance, and sometimes the prayers of the living. Cayce emphasized that those who remain near the earthly plane can be helped. They are not trapped but paused. And it is often love, quiet, unwavering, intentional love, that guides them back to the path of ascent. What does this mean for us, the living? It means that how we live shapes how we die. Not in fear, but in responsibility. We can cultivate clarity, peace, forgiveness, and presence now. These qualities become our light later. Death is not an end, it is a mirror. And not every soul passes cleanly through it. Some stay to learn what they could not learn in life. If these words touched your soul, subscribe to the channel. The soul, in its essence, is not bound by time or place, and yet many remain magnetically tethered to the earthly realm even after death. Edgar Cayce revealed that this phenomenon is not one of punishment or error, but of vibration, an echo of unintegrated experiences, emotional residues, and attachments that resist dissolution. Every thought we entertain, every emotion we nourish, weaves into the tapestry of our subtle body. This energetic imprint determines how lightly or heavily we cross. Some souls do not recognize that they have passed. The transition, especially in sudden or traumatic deaths, can be so abrupt that consciousness does not immediately shift. Imagine falling asleep in one room and waking up in another, yet all the furniture is familiar. The air still carries your name, the longing still breathes through your chest. The soul searches for what it knew, unaware that it has stepped into a new dimension of being. These are not ghosts in the traditional sense. They are echoes of identity seeking resolution. Others are drawn back by powerful emotional cords, a child they feel they must protect, a secret never revealed. a love they could not let go of. The soul, though free, is also tender. It moves according to the currents of intention and desire, and while the light calls, the pull of the unfinished often speaks louder, at least for a while. In this vibrational field, intentions matter more than actions. A soul that clings to guilt or resentment may recreate its own illusions, believing it is still alive, still bound by the dramas it never released. Cayce spoke of earthbound entities, not with fear but with empathy. These are beings who linger close to the physical world, not to haunt, but to find orientation. Their presence is often subtle, a feeling of cold, a sense of being watched, a dream that repeats. They may inhabit familiar places drawn to resonance, and they are not malevolent. They are misaligned, often unaware, sometimes in pain, but always reachable. Spiritual traditions across the world echo this truth. In Tibetan Buddhism, the bardo is a realm of transition, where the soul faces mirrors of its own mind. In ancient Egyptian wisdom, the soul is weighed against the feather of Mayat, not by judgment, but by the purity of its heart. Cayce aligned with this universal current. The afterlife is not a destination. It is a series of vibrational layers, and we rise or pause according to the refinement of our consciousness. When we live in truth, we lighten our being. When we practice forgiveness, we release the density of karmic weight. When we cultivate presence, we dissolve the illusions that might otherwise bind us. These are not spiritual luxuries. They are the path itself. Cayce often emphasized that meditation, prayer, and acts of quiet service tune the soul's frequency closer to the light. Not to earn entry, but to remember its natural state. The magnetic pull of Earth is not just gravity. It is emotional resonance. It is the soul's unfinished poetry. But as with all magnetism, it can be transmuted. Through awareness, intention, and the loving attention of others, both living and ascended, souls can release their grip on the past. They can rise. If we understand this, we become participants in the soul's journey beyond death. Our thoughts, prayers, and rituals of remembrance matter. They are not quaint traditions. They are energetic bridges. And through them, we help guide the wandering toward the luminous path home. To understand why not every soul moves directly into the light, we must grasp the nature of consciousness itself. According to Edgar Cayce, consciousness does not cease at death. It expands. But expansion is not automatic. It depends on readiness. The self we cultivated in life becomes the lens through which we perceive what lies beyond. If our awareness has been narrowed by fear, control, or disbelief, then the light may appear foreign, too vast, too unfamiliar to embrace. In the after-death state, consciousness sheds the body, but not the self-image. That image, who we think we are, can become a prison or a portal. Some souls cling to their identities, their names, roles, traumas, beliefs. This psychological residue forms a kind of veil filtering the true light. The soul, unable to fully let go, constructs a semi-reality shaped by its last impressions. Cayce described this as a dreamlike state, where the soul often reenacts aspects of its earthly life, believing it to still be real. This in-between world, sometimes called the astral plane, is not a fixed place but a reflection of inner states. In this realm, thoughts are form, desires become landscapes, fear can crystallize into shadows. Here, a soul may dwell for what we perceive as time, though time there is more fluid. Some eventually awaken, touched by the pull of higher vibrations. Others require intervention through prayer, loving intention, or their own growing realization. Importantly, Cayce insisted that no soul is ever abandoned. The universal law of oneness means that all are held, even in their confusion. Guides, often unseen by the wandering soul, are always present. They whisper through dreams, symbols, and synchronicities. They do not force, but invite. The soul must choose awakening. The light does not impose, it simply waits. This is why awareness during life is so vital. If we train ourselves to recognize the subtle layers of existence, to sense the sacred in silence, the infinite in stillness, then the transition becomes more fluid. Dying is not an escape from confusion, it is an encounter with the self, intensified. And the self must be prepared. To prepare, Cayce suggested aligning with truth, not as dogma but as inner coherence, living with integrity, forgiving with sincerity, meditating with openness. These practices tune the consciousness to higher states. They teach the soul to release control and trust the unseen. They awaken the inner eye that sees not with form but with essence. There is also the role of memory. Souls who have cultivated remembrance of their divine origin tend to cross more easily. This remembrance is not intellectual, it is vibrational. It's a feeling, deep in the heart, that we are more than these bodies, more than these roles. It's the subtle but unwavering knowing that light is home. When a soul forgets, it may wander. When it remembers, it ascends. We must also recognize that consciousness after death is not isolated. The thoughts and emotions of the living can affect those who have passed. Mourning with heaviness, clinging with desperation, or calling constantly to the departed may hold them close to the earthly field. But honoring them with peace, speaking to them in light, and releasing them with trust, this creates space for their rise. To walk consciously through death, we must first walk consciously through life. To know the light after, we must seek it now. It is not distant, it is here, behind the breath, within the stillness. We prepare not by fearing death, but by befriending presence. Edgar Cayce often spoke of the unseen assistance that awaits every soul at the edge of death. These are not imaginary figures or projections of hope. They are conscious presences, guides, loved ones, beings of light, whose sole purpose is to assist the soul in its transition. They are the helpers of the threshold, and they wait not in judgment, but in love. Yet their presence alone does not guarantee passage. The soul must choose to see them, to trust them, to step into the unknown that they represent. Why would a soul resist such help? Because the unfamiliar, even when luminous, can be terrifying to a mind conditioned by control. The soul clings to what it knows, its memories, its regrets, its unfinished tasks. Even suffering can become a comfort when it is familiar. Cayce understood that consciousness must be gently coaxed into surrender, not forced, never rushed. The soul unfolds like a flower, in its own rhythm, in its own time. These helpers are not passive. They transmit frequencies of comfort and clarity. They reach through veils of confusion, appearing in dreams, in moments of lucidity, in whispers of remembrance. Sometimes it is a deceased grandmother. Sometimes an angelic presence without a name. Sometimes it is simply a feeling, a profound peace that invites letting go. But again, the choice is always the soul's. There are also spiritual teachers, known and unknown, who extend their field of awareness to guide those in liminal states. According to Cayce, these teachers operate from realms where time no longer binds, and they respond to resonance. A soul in confusion radiates a specific vibrational signature, like a call. The teacher, attuned to such calls, arrives, not to rescue, but to awaken. Ritual and prayer can strengthen this connection. Across traditions, we find rituals for the dead, candles, chants, offerings, silent vigils. These are not for the living alone. They serve as spiritual signals, guiding souls toward clarity. When done with presence, they pierce the fog. They say to the wandering soul, "You are seen, you are loved, you may rise." Sometimes, however, the soul does not rise immediately because it needs to witness. Some remain close to the earthly plane to understand the consequences of their actions, not as punishment, but as education. They see how their anger rippled through generations, how their kindness healed wounds unseen. Cayce emphasized that the soul grows through reflection, and reflection deepens after death. This witnessing, though difficult, is sacred. And then there is the moment of release. When the soul, guided by unseen hands, begins to rise, it is not a movement through space, but a shift in frequency. The dense images of earthly life begin to fade. The attachments that once defined identity loosen. The soul feels itself expanding, remembering. The light is no longer external. It begins to radiate from within. This ascent is rarely linear. Some rise quickly, some in spirals. Some pause, return in dreams, then rise again. but the trajectory is always upward. The soul, once touched by truth, cannot remain unchanged. Its deepest longing is to reunite with its source, and that longing, once awakened, becomes the compass home. In this gentle unfolding, we are reminded that death is not a fall but a return, not an exile but a remembering. And even for those who do not go directly into the light, the journey is never wasted. Every pause is part of the awakening, every delay an opportunity for grace. The soul is never denied the light. It is the soul that must choose it. This is the great teaching at the heart of Edgar Cayce's revelations, that the universe does not punish, it mirrors. The light is not a gate, but a frequency. It does not open or close, it simply is. And we as eternal beings are forever invited to remember that we belong to it. But to choose the light is to surrender all that is not light within us. And that surrender, though liberating, is often the most difficult step. It requires the release of identity, the dissolving of attachment, the quiet death of egoic constructs. Many souls hesitate here, not because they are dark, but because they are afraid to lose what defined them, afraid to face what they denied, afraid to become what they have always been. Cayce showed that even in this fear, there is grace. The soul is never judged for its slowness. It is given time, space, and infinite opportunities to awaken. There is no final deadline. The universe waits. Love waits. And in that waiting, subtle transformations occur. Vibrations shift. Awareness ripens. One glimpse of truth can unfold lifetimes of forgetting. For those who live with awareness, the path is different. Death is not an interruption, but a continuation, a gentle turning of the page. These souls often pass peacefully, surrounded by light, greeted by presences they recognize. Their frequency, tuned by years of conscious living, harmonizes easily with the higher realms. They are not special, they are simply attuned, but even these souls may choose to return. Some, moved by compassion, delay their full ascent to assist others. They become guides, whispers in dreams, invisible hands that protect. According to Cayce, many of our most profound intuitions, synchronicities, and feelings of being watched over are not random. They are evidence of this sacred assistance. The light, once touched, compels the soul to serve. What then is the message for those still in the body? Live in a way that prepares you not just for death, but for the expansion that follows it. Seek to purify your vibration, not through dogma, but through love. Resolve your bitterness, express your gratitude, forgive where it hurts. Trust the silence. Meditate not to escape, but to remember. Each act of presence now becomes a bridge later, and honor the dead not with fear, but with understanding. Speak to them with peace. Call them to the light, not with sorrow, but with blessing. Cayce taught that the veil is thin, and our voices, when filled with love, can reach across it. You can be the beacon that guides a soul home. The soul's journey is not linear, nor is it ever lost. It spirals through dimensions, learning, remembering, returning. And even those who do not go to the light immediately are not damned. They are unfolding, held, witnessed, supported by a universe that never abandons its own. There is nothing to fear in death. The only fear lies in forgetting who we are. And even that fear is temporary. We are not bodies with souls. We are souls wearing bodies. And the light we seek is the light we are. If these words touched your soul, subscribe to the channel and click on the video that just appeared on your screen. It was chosen especially for you. I know you'll love it.